What if the greatest battle you ever fought wasn't on the field, but in the silence of your own heart, searching for a child you never knew? In the quiet heartland of Texas, where the sunsets stretch endless over dusty plains and the wind whispers through old oak trees, lives a man named Robert Hayes, 75 years old now, a veteran of a war that time has tried to bury. But memories refuse to die. Robert sits on his weathered porch each evening, a faded American flag flapping lazily beside him. His hands, rough from years of ranch work, clutch a mug of black coffee, gone cold long ago. He stares at the horizon, not seeing the golden fields of wheat, but the thick, humid jungles of Vietnam, the chaotic streets of Saigon, where gunfire echoed like thunder and love bloomed in the shadows of destruction. It was 1970. Robert, just 20 then, a wide-eyed draftee from a small town, landed in a world of fire and fear, the Vietnam War. It wasn't the glory he'd imagined from John Wayne movies. No, it was mud and blood and the constant hum of helicopters overhead, chopping through the air like grim reapers. Amid the chaos, he met her, Lan, a young Vietnamese woman, working in a small cafe near the base, her eyes, dark and deep, like the Mekong River at dusk, held a quiet strength, a resilience born from loss. They stole moments together, under the cover of night, whispers in broken English, laughter that drowned out the distant explosions. She taught him words in Vietnamese. Anh, I love you. He promised her the world, the American dream, a house with a white picket fence, back in Texas, where they could raise a family, away from the bombs. But war has no mercy for dreams. One night, during a fierce ambush, Robert was wounded, shrapnel tearing into his leg. He was medevaced out, leaving Lan behind, with a promise to return. Letters followed at first, faded ink on thin paper, smelling of jasmine and rain. She wrote of her hopes, of the child growing inside her, their child, a daughter, conceived in those stolen nights. Then, the letters stopped, the war ended. Robert came home, to parades that felt hollow, to nightmares that never faded. He built a life, married a kind woman from church, raised 2 sons, who now have families of their own. But in the quiet hours, when the house sleeps, the ghosts return. Lan's face, smiling in the dim light of that cafe, the child, a girl he never held, whose laughter he never heard for 50 years. He's carried this secret, buried it deep, like a landmine in his soul, waiting to explode. His wife knew, in the way wives do, but they never spoke of it until last month. A letter arrived, postmarked from Hanoi, yellowed envelope, handwriting unfamiliar, but the words inside, they shattered the silence. Dear Mr. Hayes, it began, I am writing on behalf of my mother, Lan Nguyen, who passed away 10 years ago. She spoke of you often, of the American soldier who gave her hope in the darkest days. She left behind a daughter, your daughter. Her name is Hoa. She lives in Vietnam still, searching for roots. She doesn't know you exist, but perhaps it's time. Robert's hands trembled as he read it. Again and again, the letter from Lan's sister, a woman he'd never met, detailing how Lan had waited for years, raising Hoa alone amid the ruins of war, poverty, and prejudice against a mixed-race child. Hoa, now 54, a teacher in a small village, married, with children of her own, grandchildren Robert never imagined. The words burned into him, like napalm on skin. What kind of father abandons his blood? What kind of man lets 50 years slip away? In the silence of his study, surrounded by old photos, medals gathering dust, Robert made a decision. He would go back to Vietnam, not as a soldier this time, but as a father, seeking redemption in a land that had taken so much and given him a legacy he never claimed. He packed light, a worn duffel bag, the same one from Nam. Inside, faded photos of Lan, The letter, a silver locket she'd given him, with a lock of her hair, still black as night. His sons drove him to the airport, worry etched on their faces. "Dad," the eldest said, "are you sure? After all this time?" Robert nodded, his voice steady, but his heart pounding. "I have to, son. Some battles. You fight alone." At the gate, as the boarding call echoed, Robert paused, looking out at the runway. Planes roaring into the sky, like birds fleeing a storm. The weight pressed down, 50 years of what-ifs. What if he'd gone back sooner? What if the war hadn't torn them apart? What if Hoa resents him, a stranger from across the ocean, claiming a piece of her life, but beneath the fear, a spark of hope, the American spirit, stubborn, unyielding. He boarded the plane, seat by the window, as it lifted off, Texas shrinking below. Robert closed his eyes, feeling the pull of a foreign land, calling him home to face the past, and perhaps find a future in the arms of a daughter. He never knew if this tale of lost love and hidden legacies tugs at your heartstrings. Hit that subscribe button for Echoes of the Past and join us in uncovering more forgotten stories. From history's shadows, the plane touched down in Hanoi after 22 hours across oceans and memories. Robert Hayes stepped onto the tarmac. The air hit him like a wall, thick, humid, heavy with the scent of motorbike exhaust, and something sweeter, like jasmine blooming through the chaos. His legs, stiff from the flight and the old shrapnel wound, throbbed with a familiar ache. 50 years had passed, but Vietnam, it felt like yesterday. He stood there, in the bustling terminal of Noi Bai Airport, a stranger in a land that had shaped him and broken him. Travelers rushed past, voices chattering in a language he once learned in whispers. From Lan. Now, it was a cacophony, overwhelming. Cell phones glowed, neon signs flickered. This wasn't the Saigon of 1970, with its sandbagged checkpoints and the constant wail of sirens. This was a new Vietnam, vibrant, alive, a country that had moved on. While Robert, he was still stuck, in the jungles, in the past. He clutched his duffel bag, the same one he'd carried as a young soldier, its canvas worn thin, like his own resolve. Inside, the letter from Lan's sister, the locket with her hair, and a photo, faded but clear. Lan smiling in her ao dai, her eyes sparkling, as if the war couldn't touch her. Robert's chest tightened. He was here to find their daughter, Hoa. But where to begin? In this sprawling, unfamiliar world. A young man approached, early 30s, lean, with a friendly grin, and eyes that carried a hint of the West. "Mr. Hayes," he said, his accent a mix of Vietnamese cadence and American clarity. "I'm Min, your guide. Welcome to Vietnam." Robert nodded, managing a weak smile. Min's presence was a relief, a bridge between two worlds. Born in Da Nang to a Vietnamese mother and an American father he never knew, Min had grown up in California, but returned to his roots to help people like Robert navigate the ghosts of the war. They stepped outside, into the chaos of Hanoi's streets. Motorbikes swarmed like hornets, weaving through vendors hawking pho and fruit stands bursting with mangoes, dragon fruit. The air buzzed with horns, laughter, life. Robert froze, his senses assaulted. The humidity clung to his skin like the jungle sweat of 70. The smell of grilled pork, mingling with diesel, took him back to roadside stalls where Lan would sneak him bowls of noodle soup. Under the cover of dusk, Min led him to a small van, parked amid the frenzy. "First time back?" Min asked, climbing into the driver's seat. Robert settled in, his gaze fixed out the window. "Yeah," he said softly. "First time, since the war." Min nodded, not pushing, but his eyes held understanding. "This place," he said, starting the engine. It's changed, but the ghosts? They're still here. You'll see. They drove through Hanoi. Skyscrapers towered where bamboo shacks once stood. Billboards advertised smartphones, not propaganda. Robert's mind drifted to a night in Saigon, when Lon had pressed the silver locket into his hand. "For luck," she'd whispered, her fingers trembling. He'd promised to come back, to take her to America, to give their child a life free of war. But the evacuation came too fast. The letters stopped, and the guilt, it grew, like vines choking his heart. Min broke the silence. "The letter said Hawes in a village near Da Nang, right?" Robert nodded, pulling out the crumpled envelope. "Yeah, a teacher. That's what her aunt wrote." Min glanced at it, his brow furrowing. "Da Nang's a few hours by plane. We'll head there tomorrow, tonight. You rest. Hanoi can be a lot." Robert didn't argue. His body ached, his mind spun. But rest? That was a luxury he hadn't had in years. They checked into a small hotel, tucked down a narrow alley. The room was simple. A bed, a fan, a window overlooking a street alive with lanterns. Robert sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at Lon's photo. Her smile. It haunted him. Not just with love, but with questions. Did she hate him for leaving? Did Hoa grow up knowing she had a father? Or was he just a shadow, a story untold? That evening, Min took him to a street market to ease him into Vietnam. The air was thick with spices, grilled fish, lemongrass. Vendors called out, their voices rising and falling like a song. Robert walked slowly, his cane tapping the uneven pavement. Every face felt like a clue, every woman of a certain age. Could she be Lon? Could she be Hoa? Then he saw her across the market, near a stall selling silk scarves. A woman, mid-50s, her hair black as midnight, her posture graceful, like Land's. Robert's heart leapt. He moved toward her, ignoring the pain in his leg. The crowd parted. She turned, and for a moment, their eyes met. Hers were deep, familiar, like the Mekong at dusk. He opened his mouth to speak, but Min's hand on his shoulder stopped him. "Mr. Hayes," Min said gently, "that's not her." The woman smiled politely, then turned away, selling a scarf to a tourist. Robert's shoulders sagged. The hope, it had flared so bright and burned out just as fast. Min guided him to a plastic stool at a noodle stall. "It happens," Min said, handing him a bowl of pho. "You see them everywhere at first, the ones you're looking for, the ghosts." Robert stared into the steaming broth. Beef, cilantro, memories. "I thought," he started, but the words failed him. Min leaned in, his voice low. "My dad was a GI too. Never met him. My mom, she used to point at every American tourist, hoping, you know?" Robert looked up, meeting Min's gaze. Two men, bound by the war's long shadow. "Did you ever find him?" Robert asked. Min shook his head. "No, but I found this place. It's home now. Maybe you'll find your home too." They ate in silence. The city pulsed around them. Robert's mind churned. Hoa was out there, somewhere, a daughter he'd never held. Did she look like Lon? Did she have her mother's strength or his stubborn streak? The letter said she was a teacher, raising her own kids, grandkids. The thought warmed him and terrified him. What if she didn't want him? What if 50 years was too long? Back at the hotel, Robert couldn't sleep. The fan creaked above, the street noises bled through the window. Motorbikes, laughter, a distant karaoke song. He pulled out the locket, opened it. Lon's hair, still soft, still hers. He pressed it to his lips, whispering, "I'm here, Lon. I'm trying." The weight of the past pressed down, 50 years of guilt, of wondering, of dreaming about a girl who might not even know his name. He thought of Texas, his sons, his wife. They'd built a good life, a ranch, Sunday barbecues, grandkids running through sprinklers. the American dream, but it was incomplete. A piece missing. Hoa, his daughter, out there, in this land of ghosts. And he'd cross every jungle, every river, to find her. Morning came. The sun rose over Hanoi, painting the city gold. Robert stood at the window, watching street vendors set up, their movements quick, purposeful, like soldiers on a mission. Men arrived early, knocking softly. "Ready, Mr. Hayes?" Robert turned, his jaw set. Ready. He grabbed his duffel, the locket in his pocket, the letter tucked close. They'd fly to Da Nang, to the village, to Hoa. As they left the hotel, Robert felt it, a pull, like a compass needle, pointing south, toward answers, toward redemption. The ghosts of Vietnam were calling, not with anger, but with hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could make things right. The van rolled through Hanoi's streets, toward the airport. Robert's eyes scanned the crowds, still searching, for a face, a clue, a daughter. Men glanced over. "You okay?" Robert nodded, his voice steady. "I will be, when I find her." The road stretched ahead, leading to a past he couldn't escape and a future he dared to dream. The flight to Da Nang was short, barely an hour, but to Robert Hayes, it felt like crossing a lifetime. The plane hummed, a low, steady drone, like the choppers that once ferried him through Vietnam's jungles. He sat by the window, staring down at the patchwork of green fields, rice paddies glinting like mirrors in the sun, rivers twisting like veins. This land, it held his past, his promises, his daughter, Hoa, somewhere below, waiting, unaware of the father now chasing her shadow. Men sat beside him, scrolling through his phone, checking maps, contacts. The young guide's energy was a stark contrast to Robert's quiet resolve. His hands, gnarled from years of ranch work, clutched the faded letter. Lan's sister's words burned into him. "She's a teacher in a village near Da Nang. She doesn't know you exist." Each sentence a weight, each word a hope. He traced the locket in his pocket, Lan's hair inside. A tether to 1970, to a love cut short by war, by time. They landed in Da Nang. The city was a shock, modern, bustling. High-rises gleamed where shanties once stood. The beach stretched golden along the coast. Tourists snapped photos. Surfers rode waves. Robert's mind flickered to sandbagged bunkers, to the roar of artillery. This wasn't his Vietnam, but the air, thick, humid, smelled the same, like earth after rain, like memory. Men rented a motorbike, strapped Robert's duffel to the back. "The village is an hour out," he said, handing Robert a helmet. "Hold on tight. Roads get rough." Robert nodded, his cane propped against his knee. The old shrapnel wound ached, a reminder of the jungle ambush that tore him from Lan. He climbed on, gripping men's shoulders. The bike roared to life, weaving through traffic, past markets, temples, pagodas with curling roofs. The city faded, giving way to countryside, green hills, water buffalo grazing, bamboo groves swaying in the breeze. Robert's heart pounded, not from the ride, but from the pull of the past. They were heading to Quang Nam, near the village where he and Lan met, where they'd stolen moments, in a cafe, under mango trees, her laughter soft as a breeze, her touch warm against the war's cold grip. He'd promised her a future, a home in Texas, but the evacuation came, swift, brutal. He was airlifted out, bleeding, screaming her name. She stayed behind, pregnant, alone. Men slowed the bike, turning onto a dirt road. Dust swirled, stinging Robert's eyes. The village appeared, a cluster of stilt houses, thatched roofs. Children played in the street, chasing chickens, laughing. An old woman fanned herself on a porch, watching them pass. Robert scanned every face, every figure. Could Hoa be here, teaching in a schoolhouse, raising her own kids, his grandkids? The thought tightened his throat. A family he'd never known. They stopped at a small community center, a low building, concrete walls. A tin roof rusted at the edges. Min parked the bike, helped Robert dismount. His leg protested, but he ignored it. "This is it," Min said, pointing to a bulletin board covered in faded flyers. "The locals know everyone. If Hoa's here, they'll know." Robert nodded, his mouth dry, his pulse racing. 50 years. And now, this close, inside. The air was stale. Fans spun lazily overhead. An elderly man sat at a desk, his face lined like cracked earth. Min spoke in Vietnamese, rapid, polite. The man listened, nodding slowly. Robert stood back, clutching the letter, the locket, his anchors. Min turned, his expression guarded. "He says, Lan lived here, long ago, but she's gone, died 10 years back, like the letter said." Robert's heart sank. He'd known this, but hearing it, it cut deeper. "And Hoa?" he asked, voice hoarse. The old man spoke again. Min translated. "Lan had a daughter, Hoa. She left the village years ago, moved to Da Nang, runs a small business now, a school, for kids." Robert's breath caught. A school, just like the letter said. A teacher, his daughter, alive, thriving. Min scribbled an address. "It's in the city. We can go now." Robert nodded, hope flaring, but fear too. What if she didn't want him? A stranger, a ghost from a war she never knew? They rode back to Da Nang, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows. Robert's mind churned. Flashbacks hit hard. Saigon, 1970, Lan sneaking him into her family's home, her mother glaring, disapproving of the American soldier. But Lan, she didn't care. She'd sit with him, on a woven mat, sharing rice, whispering dreams. "Our child," she'd said one night, her hand on her belly. "She'll have your eyes, my smile." Robert had laughed, promised to be there, to be a father. But the war had other plans. At a stoplight, Min turned. "You okay, Mr. Hayes?" Robert forced a nod. "Just remembering." Min's eyes softened. "I get it. My mom used to talk about my dad. Said he promised to come back too. Never did." Robert looked away. The guilt was a stone in his chest. He'd failed Lan, failed Hoa. But now, he had a chance to make it right. They reached the address, a modest building, sign out front, Bright Future Academy. Children's laughter spilled from open windows. Robert's heart raced. He stepped off the bike, leaning on his cane. Min stayed close. "Want me to come in?" Robert shook his head. "This one's mine." He took a breath, steeled himself, and walked inside. The classroom was bright, colorful posters on the walls, kids at desks, drawing, singing. A woman stood at the front, mid-50s, hair pulled back, glasses perched on her nose. She was writing on a chalkboard, her movements quick, confident. Robert froze. Was this Hoa, his daughter? She turned, sensing his presence. Her eyes met his, dark, like Lan's, but sharper, wary. "Excuse me," Robert said, his voice trembling. "I'm looking for Hoa Nguyen." The woman tilted her head, studying him. "I'm Hoa," she said, her English clear, tinged with an accent. "Who are you?" Robert's knees weakened. He gripped his cane, words caught in his throat. "I'm Robert Hayes," he managed. "I knew your mother, Lan." Her face changed, surprise, then caution. "My mother?" she said. "She's been gone a long time. Why are you here?" He fumbled for the letter, held it out. "Your aunt wrote to me, said you're my daughter." The room went quiet. The kids stopped singing. Hoa's eyes widened. She took the letter, scanned it. Her hands shook. "You're my father?" she whispered. Tears welled. Robert nodded, his own eyes burning. "I didn't know. Not until now. I'm so sorry." She stepped closer, searching his face, for truth, for lies. Then, without warning, she hugged him, tight, like she'd been waiting 50 years too. "I thought you were dead," she said, her voice breaking. "Mama said you never came back." Robert held her. tears streaming. "I tried," he said. "God, I tried." The kids watched, silent. Min stood at the door, smiling softly. They sat in her office, a small room, stacked with books. Hoa poured tea, her hands steady now. "Mama talked about you," she said. "The soldier who loved her. She said you'd come back, someday." Robert swallowed hard. "I wanted to. The war. It took everything." Hoa nodded, understanding. "I grew up here. After Mama died, I built this school for kids like me, orphans, mixed kids, the ones the world forgets." Robert listened, amazed, proud. She was strong, like Lon. But there was something else. In her eyes, a flicker of doubt. Her accent. It wasn't quite right. Too polished, like she'd studied English abroad, not in a village. He brushed it off, focused on her words, her life. She had a husband, 2 kids, a boy and a girl. Robert's grandkids. The thought warmed him, like Texas sun on his face. But as they talked, a shadow grew. Her stories, they didn't line up. She spoke of Lon's life in the village, but got details wrong. Dates, places, things Lon had written in her letters. Robert's gut twisted. Was it memory or something else? He glanced at Min, who was watching Hoa closely, too closely. Robert pushed the thought away. This was his daughter, his Hoa. He'd found her, hadn't he? They agreed to meet again, tomorrow, for dinner, to talk more, to build something new. Robert left the school, his heart full, but heavy. Min drove him to a hotel, silent, as if sensing the unease. In the room, Robert opened the locket, stared at Lon's hair. "Is it you, Hoa?" he whispered. The ghosts of Vietnam whispered back, not with answers, but with questions, and the weight of truth, still out of reach. The morning sun spilled over Da Nang, painting the city in hues of gold and amber. Robert Hayes sat in his hotel room, the air heavy with the scent of coffee and the weight of yesterday's reunion. Hoa, his daughter, found after 50 years, her face, her voice, they lingered in his mind like echoes of Lon. Yet something gnawed at him, a whisper of doubt. Her stories, the way they didn't quite fit, like puzzle pieces forced into the wrong slots. He pushed it down, buried it. This was his chance, to be a father, to mend the past. He stood at the window, watching the city pulse. Motorbikes zipped through narrow streets. Vendors called out, their voices sharp, musical. Da Nang was alive, thriving, so different from the war-torn chaos he'd known back when he was 20, when Lon's laughter was his only refuge. He clutched the silver locket in his pocket. Lon's hair inside, a reminder of promises broken, and now, promises he meant to keep. Min arrived, knocking softly, his usual grin tempered by a quiet intensity. "Ready, Mr. Hayes?" he asked. Robert nodded, his cane in one hand, the letter from Lan's sister in the other. They were meeting Hoa again, for dinner, at a small restaurant by the Han River, a chance to talk, to learn, to build something real. Robert's heart thudded, hope and fear tangled together, like vines in the jungle. They rode through the city, the motorbikes rumble a steady heartbeat, past neon signs, past temples glowing with incense. Robert's mind drifted to the classroom yesterday, Hoa's embrace, her tears. "I thought you were dead," she'd said. Her words had cut deep, a blade of guilt. He'd left her, left Lon, to face the war alone, a mixed-race child, in a country torn apart. He imagined her childhood, whispers, stares, rejection. Yet she'd risen, built a school, a life. He was proud, but the doubt lingered. Her accent, too crisp, her stories, too vague. He shook his head, chastising himself. She was his daughter. He had to believe. The restaurant was modest, wooden tables, lanterns casting soft light. The Han River sparkled outside, reflecting the city's glow. Hoa was already there, sitting by the window, her glasses catching the light. She wore a simple dress, blue, like the one Lan used to wear. Robert's breath caught. For a moment. She was Lan, young, hopeful, before the war stole everything. She stood, smiling. "You came?" she said, her voice warm but measured. They sat, ordered pho, spring rolls. The food arrived, steaming, fragrant. Men joined them, translating when needed. Though Hoa's English was near perfect, they talked about her school, her students, kids who'd lost parents, like she had. Robert listened, his heart swelling. "You're doing good work," he said, his Texas drawl soft. "Your mother, she'd be proud." Hoa's smile faltered, just for a second. "Thank you," she said, her eyes dropping to her bowl. The conversation turned personal. Robert shared stories of Texas, the ranch, his sons, his grandkids. "They'd love to meet you," he said. Tentative, hopeful. Hoa nodded. "I'd like that," she said, but her tone was distant, like she was reciting lines. Robert leaned forward. "Tell me about you, growing up, your mother." Hoa sipped her tea, her fingers tight around the cup. "It was hard," she said. "After the war, people didn't like kids like me. Half American. Mama worked 2 jobs, kept me safe." Her voice was steady, but her eyes, they darted away. Robert's gut twisted, the details. They matched the letter, but something was off. Lan's letters had mentioned a brother, a market where she worked. Hoa hadn't. She spoke of Da Nang, but Lan lived in a village, near Quang Nam. Small things, but they piled up, like stones in a riverbed, disrupting the flow. He glanced at Min, who was watching Hoa, his jaw tight, as if he saw it too. They ate, laughed, shared stories. Hoa asked about America, the open plains, the stars at night. Robert painted a picture of barbecues, of 4th of July fireworks, of the American dream he'd wanted for her. "I wanted to bring your mother there," he said, his voice cracking. "You too. I failed you both." Hoa reached across the table, touched his hand. "You're here now," she said, her eyes soft, but guarded. The night deepened. The river outside shimmered. Robert pulled out the locket, opened it, showed her Lan's hair. "This was hers," he said. "She gave it to me, before I left." Hoa stared at it, her face unreadable. "It's beautiful," she said, but her fingers didn't reach for it, didn't linger. Robert's heart sank. Lan would have known that locket, would have told her daughter, wouldn't she? Min excused himself to take a call, leaving them alone. Robert seized the moment. "Hoa," he said, "what was your mother like after I left?" Hoa hesitated, her eyes flickering. "She was strong," she said. "Worked in a market, raised me alone until she got sick." Robert nodded. But the market? Lan's letter said it was in Quang Nam, not Da Nang. And the timeline. Hoa said Lan died 10 years ago. The letter said the same, but Lan's last letter, from 1975, spoke of moving north to Hanoi, small cracks, growing wider. He pressed, gently. "Did she ever talk about me?" Hoa's smile tightened. "Sometimes," she said. "She said you were brave, a soldier, that you loved her." Her words were right, but they felt rehearsed, like a story memorized, not lived. Robert's hands shook. He wanted to believe her, wanted to hold on to this moment, this daughter, but the doubt, it was a shadow, growing darker. Min returned, his face tense. "Everything okay?" he asked. Robert nodded, but his eyes stayed on Hoa. She was talking now, about her kids, a boy, a girl, their names, their dreams. Robert listened, clinging to her words, to the idea of family. But the shadow lingered, her accent, too polished, like she'd learned English in a classroom, not from a mother who spoke broken phrases, her stories, too smooth, like they'd been polished for tourists. Dinner ended. Hoa hugged him again, her embrace warm, but brief. "Come to the school tomorrow," she said. "Meet my students, my family." Robert nodded. "I will," he said, his voice heavy. They parted, Hoa disappearing into the night. Min drove Robert back to the hotel, silent. The city blurred past, lights smearing like tears. In his room, Robert sat on the bed, the locket in his hand. He opened it, stared at Lon's hair. "Is it her?" he whispered. The doubt was a knife, twisting. He thought of Texas, his sons, the life he'd built. It was real, solid. But this? Hoa? It felt fragile, like a dream that could shatter. He pulled out the letter, read it again. The words were clear. Hoa, a teacher, in Da Nang. But the cracks in her story, they didn't add up. He called Min, who answered on the first ring. "Mr. Hayes?" Min's voice was sharp, worried. "Something's wrong," Robert said. "Her stories, they don't match." Min was quiet, too quiet. "I know," he said finally. "I noticed too, her accent. It's not local, more American, like she studied abroad." Robert's heart pounded. "What are you saying?" Min hesitated. "I'm saying, we need to be sure. I have a contact. Can check records, birth certificates, if you want." Robert's throat tightened. He wanted to trust Hoa, wanted to believe in the hug, the tears, the family he'd found. But the truth, it was out there, waiting, like a landmine. "Do it," he said, his voice a whisper. Min agreed, promising to dig deeper. Robert hung up, staring into the dark. The river outside sparkled, mocking him with its calm. He lay back, the fan creaking above, his mind racing. Hoa's face, Lon's eyes, but something else, a memory. Lon's last letter, mentioning a friend, a woman who helped her, after Robert left. Could Hoa be? No. He stopped himself. She was his daughter. She had to be. But the doubt, it clung to him, like jungle mud, thick, unyielding. Tomorrow, he'd see her again, meet her family, find the truth, or lose himself trying. The dawn broke over Da Nang, a soft glow creeping through the hotel curtains. Robert Hayes lay awake, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. The fan spun lazily, its creak a metronome to his restless thoughts. Hoa, his daughter, or so he hoped. Her embrace last night, warm, real, had stirred something deep, a longing for family, for redemption. Yet, the cracks in her story, the too perfect accent, the vague memories of Lon, they gnawed at him, like shrapnel still buried in his leg, a pain that never fully healed. He rose, slowly, his body stiff, the old wound throbbing, a reminder of 1970, of the jungle ambush that tore him from Lon, from the life they'd dreamed of. He gripped the silver locket, Lan's hair inside, a fragile thread to the past. He'd come to Vietnam for answers, for Hoa. But now, doubt shadowed every step. Was she truly his, or was this another trick of the war? Another ghost, playing with his heart? Min arrived early, his motorbike idling outside. Robert met him at the curb, the morning air thick, humid, smelling of river water and grilled meat. "You sleep okay, Mr. Hayes?" Min asked, his eyes searching. Robert shook his head. "Not much," he said, his Texas drawl heavy. "Too many questions." Min nodded, understanding. "We'll see her today, at the school. Maybe things will clear up." Robert clutched his cane, hoping Min was right, fearing he wasn't. They rode to Hoa's school, Bright Future Academy. The sign was cheerful, painted in bold reds and blues. Children's voices spilled from the courtyard, high-pitched, joyful. Robert's chest tightened. He pictured his grandkids in Texas, running through sprinklers, laughing under wide-open skies. The American dream. He'd wanted that for Hoa, a life free of war's scars. Had she found it here? Or was she hiding something? Behind that warm smile, Hoa greeted them at the gate, her glasses glinting in the sun. She wore a simple blouse, her hair tied back, like Lan's used to be. "You came," she said, her voice bright, but her eyes, they flickered, wary. Robert forced a smile. "Wouldn't miss it," he said, his heart pounding. She led them inside, past classrooms buzzing with kids, crayon drawings taped to walls. The air smelled of chalk and hope. They sat in her office, a cramped space, books stacked high, a photo frame on the desk. Hoa with two kids, a boy and a girl, smiling. Robert stared at it. His grandkids? The thought warmed him, then chilled him. Were they real, or part of a story? Hoa poured tea, her hands steady. "My students," she said. "They're my life, like my own kids." Robert nodded, sipping the tea. It was bitter, like his doubts. They talked about her work, her dreams for the school. Robert shared more of Texas, the ranch, the smell of hay, the sound of cicadas at dusk. "My boys," he said. "They'd love to meet you, bring their kids, your niece and nephew." Hoa's smile was soft. "I'd like that," she said. But her voice, it wavered, just a fraction. Robert caught it. Min did too, his eyes narrowing, watching her closely. She took them to meet her family, a small house near the school, tucked among rice paddies, the air green with the scent of wet earth. Her husband, Trung, was a quiet man, a mechanic, his hands stained with grease. Their kids, Lin and Bao, were shy but curious. Lin, the girl, was 10, her eyes dark, like Lan's. Bao, the boy, was 8. He showed Robert a toy truck. "Like the ones in America?" he asked. Robert chuckled. "Just like that, kid." His heart ached. This felt real. A family. His family. They ate lunch together. Sticky rice, grilled fish, pickled vegetables. The table was loud. Laughter. Stories. Hoa told of her childhood. "Mama worked hard," she said. "In the market. After the war, it wasn't easy, being different." Robert listened. His fork paused. The market again. Lan's letters placed her in Quang Nam, not Da Nang. He glanced at Min, who was quiet. Too quiet. Robert pushed the thought away, focused on Lin's giggle, Bao's grin. This was what he'd come for, wasn't it? After lunch, they walked through the paddies, the sun high, the air shimmering with heat. Hoa pointed to the fields. "This is home," she said. "I built my life here, for my kids." Robert nodded. "You did good," he said, his voice thick. "I'm proud." She smiled, but her eyes, they didn't meet his. They looked past him, to the horizon. Robert's stomach twisted. That look, it wasn't Lan's. Lan's eyes were open, honest. Hoa's were guarded. Back at the school, Hoa showed him the library, shelves of worn books, kids reading in corners. She handed him a photo album. "Mama's," she said, "from before." Robert opened it, his hands trembling. Pictures of Lan, young, smiling, in the village, with a baby. Hoa, his daughter. His eyes burned, but one photo stopped him. Lan, holding Hoa, next to a man, not Robert, a Vietnamese man, smiling, familiar. Robert's heart skipped. "Who's this?" he asked, his voice low. Hoa hesitated. "Mama's cousin," she said quickly. "He helped us after you left." Robert nodded, but the man's face, it wasn't a cousin's. It was too close, too intimate. The doubt grew, sharp, unrelenting. He flipped through more photos. Lan with Hoa, Lan alone, but none with the details he remembered. The cafe, the mango tree, the market in Quang Nam. Hoa's stories. They were close, but off, like a song played in the wrong key. He closed the album, looked at her. "You look like her," he said, trying to believe it. Hoa smiled. Everyone says that. But her smile, it didn't reach her eyes. Min pulled Robert aside as the kids ran off to play. "Mr. Hayes," he whispered, "I checked with my contact. The records, they're messy, but Hoa's birth certificate, it lists a different father, not you." Robert's breath caught. The world tilted. "What?" he said, his voice a rasp. Min's face was grim. "I'm not sure yet. Could be a mistake. War records are spotty, but we need to dig deeper." Robert's hands clenched. The locket burned in his pocket. "She's my daughter," he said, defiant. But the words felt hollow. They left the school, Hoa waving from the gate, her smile bright. But Robert saw it now, the cracks, the way she avoided certain questions, about Lon's life, about the war. He climbed onto the motorbike, his chest tight. Min drove, silent, the paddies blurred past, green, endless, like the jungles of '70. Robert's mind raced. Was Hoa lying? Or was she just confused? A child of war, caught in its chaos. He wanted to believe her, wanted to hold on to the family he'd found, the grandkids, the laughter. But the truth, it was slipping through his fingers, like sand, at the hotel. Robert sat alone, the photo album Hoa had lent him open on the bed. Lon's face stared back, young, beautiful. But the man in the photo, the cousin, his smile haunted Robert. Was he Hoa's father? Had Lon moved on? After Robert left, the thought was a knife. He'd failed her, left her to raise a child alone. Maybe she'd found someone else, built a new life. Without him, he called Min. "Find out more," he said, his voice hard. "I need the truth." Min agreed, promising to check hospital records, orphanage files, anything. Robert hung up, staring at the locket. "Lan," he whispered, "is she ours?" The room was silent. The fan creaked. Outside, the river flowed, carrying secrets and lies. He thought of Texas, his sons, his wife, the life he'd built. It was real, tangible. But here, in Vietnam, everything felt like a dream, fragile, ready to shatter. Tomorrow, he'd see Hoa again, ask harder questions, demand answers. But for now, he was adrift, in a sea of doubt, clinging to the hope that the daughter he'd found was truly his, and not another ghost of a war that never let him go. The night closed in on Da Nang, a heavy darkness, thick with humidity and the weight of uncertainty. Robert Hayes sat on the edge of his hotel bed, the room dim, lit only by a flickering lamp. The photo album lay open, Lon's face staring up. Her eyes, those deep Mekong River eyes, they held him, accused him, loved him. The locket rested in his palm, cold, unforgiving. Its silver glinted, like a blade. He traced the strand of Lon's hair inside, whispering her name. "Lon, tell me, is Hoa ours?" The silence answered, cruel, unyielding. The doubts had grown, from whispers to roars. Hoa's stories, her polished accent, the photo of the cousin with Lon, the birth certificate Min mentioned, listing another father, each piece a shard, cutting deeper. Robert's heart churned. He'd come to Vietnam for redemption, to find his daughter, to heal the wounds of 50 years. But now, he stood on the edge of a truth that might destroy him. Was Hoa his, or was she a stranger, weaving a tale to fill the void of his guilt? He hadn't slept, not really. The fan above creaked, a slow, tortured rhythm. Outside, the Han River murmured, its surface catching the city's neon glow. Robert's mind replayed the day. Hoa's smile, her kids, Lin and Bao, their laughter. It had felt so real, like family, like Texas barbecues, like home. But the cracks, they were undeniable now. Her vague memories of Lon, the wrong market, the wrong dates, and Min's words. A different father. They echoed. like gunfire in the jungle. Min had promised answers. He'd gone to his contact, a clerk with access to old records, war-torn files, birth certificates, adoption papers. The chaos of post-war Vietnam had left gaps, lies. But Min was determined. Robert trusted him, had to. Min knew the pain of a father lost to war, a GI who never came back. Robert clutched the locket tighter, his knuckles white. He'd come too far to turn back now. Morning came, gray, storm clouds gathering, the air thick with the promise of rain. Min arrived, his face grim, no grin today. "Mr. Hayes," he said, his voice low, "I got the results." Robert's heart stopped. He stood, his cane forgotten. "Tell me," he said, his voice a rasp. Min hesitated, holding a thin folder. "The DNA test. You sent me your sample. I had it checked against HOA's records, from the school's health files." Robert nodded, his throat dry. "And?" Min looked away, to the window, where rain began to patter, soft, relentless. "She's not your daughter." The words landed like a mortar shell. Robert staggered, his hand grabbing the bed frame. "What?" he whispered. Min opened the folder, showed him the report. Cold, clinical, numbers and charts, confirming the truth. Hoa Nguyen, not related to Robert Hayes, not his blood, not his legacy. The room spun. Robert sank onto the bed. The locket fell from his hand, clattering to the floor. Lan's hair, her memory, it mocked him. "How?" he said, his voice breaking. "She knew things. About Lan. About me." Min sat beside him, his own eyes heavy. "She's a con artist, Mr. Hayes. It's not uncommon. Veterans come back, looking for closure. People like her. They study, they learn, they find letters, old stories. They build a lie to get money or sympathy or both." Robert's chest burned, betrayal, sharp, like shrapnel tearing through him again. He saw Hoa's face, her tears, her hug, the kids, Lynn and Bao. Were they even hers or props in her scheme? He thought of the dinner, the school, the photo album, all of it, a performance, a lie. He'd wanted to believe so badly that he'd ignored the signs, the cracks, the truth. Rain lashed the window now, a storm rolling in, like the monsoons of '70. Robert's mind flashed back to Saigon, to Lan's last letter, arriving in '75, after the fall, smuggled out through a friend. "I have our daughter," she'd written. "Her name is Hoa. She's safe, but we're alone. You didn't come back." The guilt had crushed him then, and now it was worse. He'd found a daughter, only to lose her, to a lie. "I trusted her," he said, his voice hollow. Min nodded. "I know. I'm sorry." Robert looked at him. Min's face, it carried the same pain, a child of war, caught between worlds. "What now?" Robert asked. Min sighed. "We confront her. Tonight. At the school. I have proof. Documents. She can't deny it." Robert's jaw tightened, anger rising, mixing with grief. "Let's do it," he said, his voice hard, like the soldier he'd once been. The day dragged. Rain fell in sheets. Robert sat by the window, watching the river churn, his thoughts dark. He remembered Lan's voice, her laughter, her dreams. She'd wanted a family, a home. He'd promised her America, the white picket fence, the open plains. But he'd failed, left her to raise a child alone. And now, this imposter, this Hoa, she'd taken that dream, twisted it. For what? Money? A cruel game? He didn't know, but he'd find out. Evening came. The storm raged, thunder rumbling, like artillery in the distance. Men drove them to the school, the streets slick, deserted. Robert's heart pounded. His cane tapped the floorboard, a steady beat, like a war drum. The school loomed ahead, its lights dim. Hoa was there. Men had called her, said Robert wanted to talk, about family, about the future. She'd agreed, unsuspecting. They entered, the classroom empty. Hoa stood at the chalkboard, erasing lessons. She turned, smiling. "You're back," she said, her voice warm, but Robert saw it now. The calculation in her eyes, the practiced charm. He stepped forward, Min at his side. The folder in Min's hand. "Hoa," Robert said, his voice steady, but raw. "We need to talk." She tilted her head. "Of course," she said, her smile faltering. Robert held up the locket. "This was Lon's. You didn't even touch it. Why?" Her eyes flickered. I didn't want to damage it," she said. Weak. Unconvincing. Min stepped in, opening the folder. "We checked your records," he said. "DNA, birth certificate. You're not his daughter." Hoa's face froze, the mask slipping. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice rising, defensive. Robert's anger broke. "You lied," he said. "You knew about Lon, about me. You used her story to trick me." Hoa backed away, her hands raised. "No," she said. "You don't understand. I am Hoa. I'm her daughter." But her voice cracked, her eyes darted. To the door, to escape. Min blocked her. "We have proof," he said, showing her the report. Her name, her real father. A Vietnamese man, not Robert. She crumpled, sinking into a chair, tears streaming. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I needed help. The school. It's failing. I read about you, online, veterans forums, your story, Land's letters. I thought, if I could be her, you'd help." Robert's heart shattered, not just for himself, but for her. A woman desperate enough to steal a stranger's past. He wanted to hate her, but all he felt was pity. He turned away, the rain pounding outside, like the monsoons that had drowned his hopes 50 years ago. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Hoa sobbed. "I wanted to believe it too, to have a father, a family." Robert closed his eyes, the pain too much. He'd come for redemption, found only betrayal. Min touched his shoulder. "Let's go," he said softly. Robert nodded, leaving Hoa behind, her sobs echoing. In the empty classroom, back at the hotel, Robert sat alone, the locket on the table, Lon's letter beside it. The storm raged outside, matching the one within. He'd lost her. Again. His daughter. A mirage. But Lon's words, from 75, they whispered back. Hoa is safe, in an orphanage, waiting. An orphanage, not a village, not Da Nang. Robert's eyes widened, a new spark, faint, fragile. Maybe, just maybe, the real Hoa was still out there, waiting for a father to find her. The storm hadn't let up. Rain hammered Da Nang, a relentless roar, drowning the city in sheets of gray. Robert Hayes sat in his hotel room, the darkness pressing in, like the jungles of 70. The locket lay on the table, Lon's hair glinting faintly. Beside it, the crumpled letter from her sister, promising a daughter, a hope, now shattered. Hoa, the woman he'd embraced, was a lie, a con artist. Her tears, her stories, her kids, all a performance, crafted to prey on his guilt, his longing, his heart. He stared at the ceiling, the fan creaking, a slow, tortured rhythm. His chest was tight, his mind a battlefield. 50 years, he'd carried Lon's memory, her love, their child, a daughter he'd never held. He'd come to Vietnam, to find her, to make things right. But the truth, it had gutted him. Hoa wasn't his. The family he'd touched, the laughter he'd heard, it was a mirage, fading in the rain, like Saigon's streets, when the choppers took him away. His hand trembled, reaching for the locket. He opened it. Lon's hair, still soft, still hers. "I failed you," he whispered, his voice raw, broken. Again. The guilt was a weight, crushing. He saw her face, her smile, in that cafe, under the mango trees, promising a future, a home in Texas, the American dream, for her, for their child. But the war had stolen it, and now, this betrayal, it was a fresh wound, bleeding into the old ones. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. Robert's thoughts darkened. He saw his life, stretched out behind him, a ranch in Texas, 2 sons, grandkids, a wife who loved him, despite his silences, his nightmares. It was a good life, a full life, but incomplete, a piece missing. Hoa, his daughter, out there, somewhere, or maybe not. Maybe she was gone, like Lon, like the promises he'd made. The thought was a void, swallowing him. He stood, paced, his cane forgotten. The shrapnel wound in his leg screamed, but the pain in his heart, it was worse. He stopped at the window. The Han River churned below, black, angry, reflecting his turmoil. He saw his reflection, a tired old man, 75, worn by war, by time, by regret. What was the point? He'd come halfway across the world, chasing a ghost, only to find a lie. His hand brushed his pocket, where he kept a small bottle, pills, for his heart. Enough, maybe, to end it all. The thought came unbidden, quiet, seductive. No more pain, no more guilt, just peace. He pulled out the bottle, stared at it. The rain pounded, like artillery, like the ambush that tore him from Lon. He saw her face, her eyes, pleading. "Come back," she'd said. He hadn't. And now, he was here, alone, with nothing. The pills felt heavy, final. A knock at the door, sharp, insistent. Robert froze, the bottle in his hand. Min's voice came through. "Mr. Hayes, you there?" Robert didn't move, didn't answer. The knock came again, louder. "Mr. Hayes, open the door, please." Something in Min's tone, urgent, worried, pulled Robert back. He set the pills down, slowly, his hands shaking. He opened the door. Min stood there, soaked from the rain, his eyes wide, searching. "You okay?" he asked, stepping inside. Robert sank onto the bed. "No," he said, his voice hollow. "She wasn't her, Min. I thought I'd found her." Min sat beside him, his jacket dripping. "I know," he said. "I'm sorry. I should have checked sooner, should have seen it." Robert shook his head. "Not your fault. I wanted to believe. Too much." Min looked at the pill bottle. His jaw tightened. "Mr. Hayes," he said, softly. "Don't give up. Not yet." Robert's eyes burned. "Why not? She's gone. Hoa, Lon, all of it. Gone." Min leaned forward, his voice steady. "Because I've been where you are, my dad. He never came back. My mom waited, like Lon. She raised me alone in a country that hated us. Half American, half Vietnamese. Kids threw rocks, called me names. But she kept going, for me. And I kept going, for her." Robert looked at him. Min's face, young, but scarred. By a war he didn't fight. "I searched for my dad," Min said. "Never found him. But I found this place, Vietnam. It's my home now, and you're not done." Lon's letter. It said, Hoa was in an orphanage, not a village. We got it wrong. Hoa, the real Hoa. She's still out there. Robert's breath caught. A flicker of hope, faint, fragile. "You think so?" he asked. Min nodded. "I know so. We keep looking." Robert's chest loosened, just a fraction. Min's words, they were a lifeline, pulling him from the edge. He thought of Texas, his sons, their strength, their stubbornness, the American spirit. Never quit, never surrender. He'd fought in jungles, survived ambushes, built a life from ashes. He could fight now, for Hoa, for Lon, for himself. Min stood. "I've got a lead," he said. "An orphanage in Ho Chi Minh City. Old records from the war. Kids sent abroad. Adopted. Some came back. Like me." Robert's eyes widened. "Adopted?" Min nodded. Lon's letter said Hoa was safe. In an orphanage. After the fall of Saigon. Operation Baby Lift. Thousands of kids were sent to America, Australia, Europe. Maybe Hoa was one of them. Maybe she came back. Like I did. Robert's mind raced. Operation Baby Lift. He remembered the news. Planes airlifting kids, mixed-race children, like his daughter. Could she be out there, living a life he never knew? He stood, his cane in hand, the pain in his leg duller now. "Let's go," he said, his voice stronger. Min grinned, the first time since the confrontation. "That's the spirit," he said. "We'll head south. Tomorrow, Ho Chi Minh City. I'll call my contact. Dig deeper." The rain slowed. A drizzle now. Robert walked to the window, the river calmer, reflecting the city's lights. He thought of Lon, her strength, her love. She'd raised their daughter, alone, in a war-torn world. She'd kept Hoa safe, sent her to an orphanage for a better life. Robert's failure, it wasn't the end. It was a beginning, a chance to find the real Hoa, to honor Lon's sacrifice. He picked up the locket, held it close. "I'm not done," he whispered. To Lon, to himself. The ghosts of Vietnam, they weren't just pain, they were purpose. He saw his son's faces, his wife's gentle smile, the American dream. It wasn't just land or freedom, it was family, fighting for it, no matter the cost, no matter the years. Min clapped his shoulder. "Get some rest, Mr. Hayes. Big day tomorrow." Robert nodded, feeling the spark, small but growing. He set the locket down, beside Lon's letter, the pill bottle untouched, forgotten. He wasn't that man, not tonight. He was a father, a soldier, a Texan, stubborn as hell, and he'd keep going, for Hoa, for Lon, for the peace of his heart, still out there. He lay down, the fan creaking above, the rain a soft lullaby now. His mind drifted, to Texas, to open plains, to the stars he'd shown his sons. He'd show them to Hoa too. Someday, her kids, his grandkids, he pictured them, running through fields, laughing, free. The dream wasn't dead, it was waiting, in Ho Chi Minh City, in an orphanage's dusty files, in a daughter's unknown life. Sleep came, fitful, but real, for the first time in days. Robert dreamed, not of jungles or gunfire, but of Lon, smiling, holding a baby, whispering, find her. He would. He'd cross every river, every border, every year. The war had taken so much, but it wouldn't take this, not his daughter, not his hope. The storm outside faded, and in its place, a quiet resolve to fight on, to find the truth, and to bring his daughter home. The rain had stopped, leaving Da Nang glistening, wet streets reflecting the morning sun like scattered diamonds. Robert Hayes stood at his hotel window, the Han River now calm, its surface a mirror to the city's pulse. He felt different today, lighter, not free of the pain, but unbowed by it. The betrayal of the false Hoa, it had nearly broken him, driven him to the edge, to the bottle of pills. But Min's words, his own stubborn heart, they'd pulled him back. Lon's daughter, his daughter, was still out there, somewhere. And he'd find her. He gripped the locket, Lon's hair inside. A quiet promise to keep going, to honor her, to find their child. The letter from her sister, tucked in his pocket, spoke of an orphanage, not a village, not Da Nang, but somewhere south, in Ho Chi Minh City, Operation Baby Lift. A flicker of hope, fragile, but alive. Robert's jaw set, his Texan blood stirred, the same grit that carried him through jungles, through war, through 50 years of guilt. He wasn't done, not yet. Min arrived, his motorbike idling outside, his grin back, though tempered by purpose. "Ready, Mr. Hayes?" he asked, his eyes bright. Robert nodded, his cane steady in his hand. The shrapnel wound in his leg ached, a dull throb, but it didn't slow him. "Let's go," he said, his voice firm, like the soldier he'd been. Min clapped his shoulder. "Ho Chi Minh City, 8 hours by van. We'll get there by evening." Robert packed light, the duffel bag, the locket, the letter, his anchors, his mission. They left Da Nang behind, the van winding through coastal roads, past rice paddies, green and endless. Water buffalo plodded in the mud. Farmers in conical hats bent low. The air smelled of earth, of life. Robert stared out the window, his mind drifting. To Lan, to 1970. Her laughter in the Saigon cafe, her hand in his, whispering dreams of a house in Texas, a family, a daughter. He'd failed her then, left her to face the war alone, pregnant, scared, but strong. She'd kept their child safe, sent her to an orphanage for a chance at a better life. The road stretched on, hours blurring, Robert's leg cramped, the old wound flaring like a ghost of the ambush that tore him from Lan. He winced, shifting in his seat. Min glanced over. "You okay?" Robert nodded. "Just old scars," he said. Min's eyes softened. "We all got those." Robert looked at him. Min, a child of war, like Hoa might be, caught between worlds, American blood, Vietnamese roots, searching for a place to belong. "You ever stop looking?" Robert asked. "For your dad?" Min shook his head. "No. But I found something else. Purpose. Here. Helping people like you." Robert nodded, grateful. Min was more than a guide. He was a lifeline. They stopped at a roadside stall for lunch, pho steaming in chipped bowls. The vendor, an old woman, smiled at Robert, her eyes crinkling, like Lan's used to. He ate slowly, savoring the warmth, the spices. Memories flooded back. Lan sneaking him soup. In the chaos of Saigon, her mother glaring from the kitchen, disapproving. But Lan, she'd just laugh. "For you," she'd say, handing him a bowl. Robert's throat tightened. He pushed the memory down, focused on the present, on Hoa, on the orphanage. Min checked his phone. "My contact came through," he said, slurping noodles. Old records. From a Catholic orphanage in Saigon, now Ho Chi Minh City. They took in mixed-race kids. During baby lift, some were adopted, some stayed. I got a name, Hoa Nguyen, born 71, sent to America, 75. Robert's heart leapt. Sent to America? Min nodded. Adopted by a family in California, but she came back. In the 90s, runs a charity now, for war orphans, like her. Robert's hands shook. A charity. Like the false Hoa's school. But this felt different, real. They hit the road again, the landscape changing, hills giving way to sprawl. Ho Chi Minh City loomed ahead, towering, chaotic, skyscrapers piercing the sky. Where Saigon's shanties once stood, Robert's pulse quickened, his body ached, the wound in his leg burning now, a sharp, stabbing pain. He ignored it, clenching his fist. He'd come too far to stop now. The city swallowed them, traffic snarling, horns blaring, neon lights flashing, like Saigon in 70, but louder, bolder. Min navigated narrow streets to a quiet district where the charity stood. A low building, painted white, a sign read, "Hope for Tomorrow." Robert's breath caught. Hope. It was what he'd clung to. Through the betrayal, through the dark night with the pills. Min parked, helped Robert out. The pain in his leg was fierce now, his vision blurring. He leaned on his cane, hard. "You sure you're okay?" Min asked, worry in his voice. Robert nodded, gritting his teeth. "I'm fine. Let's do this." Inside, the charity was alive. Volunteers sorting clothes, books, kids playing in a courtyard. A woman approached, mid-50s, her hair streaked with gray, her eyes kind, but sharp. "Can I help you?" she asked, her English clear. American. Robert froze, his heart pounding. I'm looking for Hoa Nguyen, he said, his voice trembling. The woman tilted her head. That's me, she said. Who are you? Robert's knees buckled. Min caught him, steadying him. I'm Robert Hayes, he said. I think I'm your father. Her face changed, shock, then doubt. My father? She said, her voice soft, wary. Robert fumbled for the letter, held it out. Your mother, Lan. She wrote to me, through her sister, said you were in an orphanage, after the war. Hoa took the letter, her hands steady. She read it, slowly, her eyes scanning the words. Then she looked up. My mother died, in 75. I was 4, sent to America, adopted. I came back, to help kids like me. Her voice was calm, but her eyes, they searched his, for truth. Robert's leg gave out, the pain overwhelming. He sank into a chair. Min knelt beside him. Mr. Hayes, you need a doctor. Robert shook his head. Not yet, he said, his voice weak, but firm. He looked at Hoa. I loved her, Lan. We had you, in Saigon. I promised to come back. I didn't. I'm sorry. Hoa's eyes softened, but she didn't move, didn't embrace him. I don't know you, she said. I don't remember her. Not really. The words cut, deep, but Robert nodded. I know, he said. But I'm here now. I want to know you. Hoa hesitated, then sat across from him. Tell me, she said. About her. About you. Robert's vision blurred, not just from pain, but tears. He spoke of Lan, her laugh, her strength, their stolen nights, the war that tore them apart. Hoa listened, silent, her face unreadable. Min interrupted. Mr. Hayes, your leg, it's bad. Robert waved him off, but the pain was a fire now, spreading, his breath short. Hoa noticed. You're hurt, she said, standing. We have a nurse here. She called for help. A young woman came, checked Robert's pulse, his leg. He needs a hospital, she said. Robert protested. No, I need to stay, to talk. But his voice was weak, his body betraying him. Hoa knelt beside him, her hand on his arm. You're not going anywhere, she said, her voice firm, like Lan's. Not until we figure this out. Robert looked at her. Her eyes, they were Lan's, deep, strong. He felt it, a connection, not just hope, but something real. Okay, he whispered. As the nurse called for an ambulance, Min stayed close, his face pale. Robert clutched the locket, his anchor, his proof. The ambulance arrived, sirens wailing, like the choppers of 70. Robert lay on the stretcher, Hoa beside him, holding his hand. I don't know if you're him, she said, her voice soft. But I want to find out. Robert smiled, weakly. That's all I ask, he said. The pain surged, his vision darkening, but he held on, to her hand, to the hope, that this Hoa, this woman, was his daughter, his legacy, his reason to keep fighting. As they drove through the city, the lights blurring, Robert saw Lan's face, smiling, whispering, find her. He would. The war had taken so much, but not this, not yet. The ambulance sped on, toward answers, toward truth, toward a family he might finally claim. The ambulance siren wailed, cutting through Ho Chi Minh City's chaotic pulse. Robert Hayes lay on the stretcher, his vision blurring, the pain in his leg, a searing fire, spreading through his body like the shrapnel that had torn into him 50 years ago in the jungles of Vietnam. His hand clutched Hoa's, this new Hoa, the woman who might be his daughter. Her grip was firm, her eyes, dark, like Lan's, held a quiet strength, a flicker of hope amid the storm of doubt. The hospital lights were harsh, sterile, cold. Doctors moved quickly, Voices clipped, speaking in Vietnamese. Min stood nearby, translating. "It's an infection," he said, his face tight with worry. "From the old wound. They're starting antibiotics. You'll be okay, Mr. Hayes." Robert nodded weakly, his breath shallow, the locket pressed against his chest, Lon's hair inside, a tether to the past, to the promise he was chasing. Hoa sat beside him, silent, her hand still holding his. "You're stubborn," she said softly, a faint smile. "Like me." He looked at her, searching her face, for Lon, for truth. Was she his daughter? The real Hoa? Not the imposter from Da Nang, the one who'd woven lies to exploit his guilt. This Hoa was different, her voice, American-tinged from years in California, her story of an orphanage, of adoption, of returning to Vietnam. It matched Lon's letter, the faint hope of Operation Baby Lift, but doubt lingered. A shadow. He'd been burned before. He needed proof. The hospital room was small, beeping machines, a single window, overlooking the city's sprawl. Rain had started again, a soft patter, like the monsoons of '70. Robert's mind drifted. To Saigon, to Lan. Her laughter in the cafe, her whispered promises. "Our daughter," she'd said, her hand on her belly. "She'll be strong, like you." He'd promised to come back, to build a life, in Texas, under wide-open skies. But the war had other plans. Choppers, blood, chaos. He'd left her, pregnant, alone. And now, he was here, fighting to find what he'd lost. Hoa spoke, breaking the silence. "I don't remember much," she said, her voice low, reflective. "Just flashes. A woman singing, a lullaby. Maybe my mother. Then the orphanage, noise, kids crying, nuns in black habits. Then America, a new family, a new name." She paused, her eyes distant. "They were kind, but I always felt out of place, like I belonged somewhere else." Robert's heart ached. He knew that feeling. The war had left him adrift, a stranger in his own life. "Why'd you come back?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Hoa looked at him, her gaze steady. "To find my roots," she said. "To help kids like me, orphans, mixed kids, the ones the world forgets." She gestured to the window, to the city beyond. "This place, it's home, even if it hurts." Robert nodded, understanding. He'd come back too, to face the pain, to find her. Min returned, a folder in his hand. "I got more records," he said, his voice cautious. "From the orphanage. Hoan Nguyen, born 71. Mother, Lan Nguyen. Father, unknown. Sent to California, 75. Adopted by the Carter family." He handed Robert a faded document, a photo clipped to it, a baby girl, dark eyes, Lan's eyes. Robert's breath caught. "That's you?" he asked Hoa. She nodded. "I think so," she said, her voice soft, uncertain. The doctor came in, checked Robert's chart. "You need rest," he said through Min. "The infection's serious. Stay here, a few days." Robert shook his head. "I can't," he said. "Not yet." The doctor frowned, but Hoa spoke. In Vietnamese, firm. The doctor relented. "One day," he said, "then we reassess." Robert nodded, grateful for her strength. That night, Hoa stayed, sitting by his bed. They talked, slowly, carefully, about Lan, about the war, about the years apart. Robert told her of Saigon, the cafe, the mango trees, Lan's smile. "She loved you," he said, his eyes burning. "She wanted you to have everything. I failed her. I didn't come back." Hoa's hand tightened on his. "You're here now," she said, echoing the false Hoa's words. But this time, they felt real. Then, she dropped the bombshell. "I knew about you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Robert froze. "What?" She looked away, to the rain-streaked window. I found you, years ago, online. Veterans forums, your name, your story, Lon's letters, they were posted by someone, maybe her sister. Robert's heart pounded. You knew? She nodded, tears welling. I wasn't sure. I was scared. Scared you'd reject me. Like you did her. The words hit, like a grenade. Robert's chest tightened. Reject you? He said. I didn't know. Not until the letter, last month. Hoa's eyes met his, searching. I wanted to believe you, she said. But I had to be sure. So I set it up. The woman in Da Nang, the false Hoa. She's a friend. She owed me. I asked her to test you, to see if you'd stay, if you'd fight. For me. Robert's world tilted. The betrayal, the lie. It wasn't just a con, it was a test, orchestrated by this Hoa, the real Hoa, his daughter. He should have been angry, furious, but all he felt was awe, her strength, her cunning, like Lon's. You tested me? He said, his voice breaking. Hoa nodded, tears streaming now. I had to know, she said. If you were real, if you cared. I've been alone all my life. I couldn't risk it. Not again. He reached for her, his hand trembling. I'm here, he said. I'm not leaving. Not this time. She fell into his arms, sobbing, her body shaking, like a child, like the daughter he'd never held. He held her now, tight, the locket pressed between them, Lan's presence, binding them. I'm sorry, he whispered, for everything, for the years, for the war. Hoa pulled back, her eyes red, but clear. I forgive you, she said. I want to know you, Dad. The word, Dad. It broke him. Tears spilled, silent. He hadn't heard it, not like this, not with this weight. His sons called him Dad, but this was different. This was redemption, a second chance. He thought of Texas, the ranch, the open plains. He'd bring her there, show her the stars, the life he'd promised Lon, for their daughter. Men watched, silent, a smile tugging at his lips. Told you, he said softly. She's out there. Robert nodded, his heart full, but his body weak. The infection sapped him. The pain lingered. Hoa noticed. You need to rest, she said, her voice firm, like a mother, like Lon. She called the nurse, arranged for him to stay. I'm not going anywhere, she said. We have time. They talked more, into the night, about her life, in America, the Carters, kind but distant, her return to Vietnam, building the charity, helping kids, like her. Robert listened, proud, amazed. She was Lon's daughter, his daughter, strong, resilient, forgiving. He told her of his sons, her brothers, of Texas sunsets, of the family waiting. They'll love you, he said. You're one of us. Hoa smiled. I'd like that, she said, her voice soft, real. No cracks, no lies. She pulled out a photo, her own kids, a boy, a girl. Your grandkids, she said. Robert's eyes burned. He saw Lon in them, in their smiles, their eyes. Can I meet them? He asked. Hoa nodded. Tomorrow, when you're stronger. The night deepened. The rain stopped. The city hummed outside. Robert felt it. A peace, fragile, but growing. He'd found her, his Hoa, through lies, through pain, through 50 years of war's shadow. The locket lay in his hand, Lan's hair, her love. It had guided him to this moment, to this daughter. He closed his eyes, her hand still in his, and for the first time, in decades, he slept, without nightmares, only dreams, of family, of home, of a future, finally within reach. The hospital room was quiet. The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting soft stripes across the floor. Robert Hayes lay in the bed, his breathing steadier now, the antibiotics working, the fire in his leg dulled to a low ache. Beside him, Hoa sat, her hand still holding his, her eyes, like lawns, deep and warm, watched him with a tenderness that felt like home after 50 years of searching, of guilt. He'd found her, his daughter, the real Hoa, not a lie, not a ghost, but flesh and blood, his legacy, his redemption. The night before, her confession had shaken him, the false Hoa, the test, orchestrated to protect her heart, to guard against abandonment. He understood. The war had left scars on them both, Lan's absence, a wound they shared. But her forgiveness, her calling him dad, it had stitched those wounds, not healed, not yet, but closer. He looked at her now, her face calm, resilient, like her mother's, and he knew he'd fight, to stay, to build, to be the father he'd failed to be all those years ago. "You're awake," Hoa said, her voice soft, a smile tugging at her lips. Robert nodded, his throat tight. "Didn't think I'd make it," he said, his Texas drawl rough. "Not after everything." Hoa squeezed his hand. "You're tougher than you look," she said, a playful glint in her eyes, like Lan's when she'd tease him in that Saigon cafe under the hum of war. The doctor came, checked his chart, spoke in Vietnamese, Minh, standing by the door, translated. "You're stable," he said, "but you need rest, a week, maybe more." Robert frowned, his stubborn streak flaring. "I've got things to do," he said. "Family to meet." Hoa raised an eyebrow. "You're not going anywhere, not yet. Dad." That word again. Dad. It hit him, like sunlight breaking through clouds. He smiled, weakly, but real. "Okay," he said. "For you." She brought her kids that afternoon. Lynn, the girl, 11 now, shy, with her mother's eyes. Bao, the boy, 9, energetic, clutching a toy helicopter. "Like the ones you flew?" he asked, his English halting, but eager. Robert chuckled. "Not quite, kid," he said, "but close." He sat up, ignoring the ache, and told them stories of Texas, of wide plains, of stars so bright they drowned out the dark. Lynn listened, wide-eyed. Bao bounced, asking questions about cowboys, about America. Robert's heart swelled. These were his grandkids, his blood, his future. Hoa watched, smiling. Her husband, Trung, joined them, quiet, but kind. He shook Robert's hand, firm, respectful. "Thank you," Trung said, through Minh, "for coming, for her." Robert nodded, his eyes burning. "I should have come sooner," he said. Trung shook his head. "You're here now." The words echoed, from Hoa, from the false Hoa, but here, they were true. Robert felt it, a bridge built, across decades, across oceans. They talked for hours, about Hoa's life, her charity, helping war orphans, kids like she'd been, mixed blood, caught between worlds. Robert listened, proud, amazed. She'd turned pain into purpose, like Lan would have. He told her about his sons, her brothers, in Texas. "They'll want to meet you," he said. "Bring the kids, see the ranch." Hoa's eyes lit up. "I'd like that," she said, "to see where you come from." Robert smiled, picturing it. Hoa, Lynn, Bao, running through his fields, under Texas skies, the American dream, not lost, just delayed. But his body faltered, the infection lingered, draining him. By evening, he was tired, his vision blurring. Hoa noticed. "You need rest," she said, firm, like a mother, like Lan. She kissed his forehead. "We'll be back tomorrow." Lin and Bao hugged him, their small arms tight. "Come back soon, Grandpa," Lin said. Grandpa. Another word. Like Dad. That broke him. He held them close, tears falling, silent. "I will," he whispered. "Promise." Days passed. Robert grew stronger. The hospital became a second home. Hoa visited daily, bringing stories, photos, her life unfolding before him. She showed him pictures of her charity, kids laughing, learning. She spoke of her adoptive parents, the Carters, kind but distant. "I always felt different," she said, "like I didn't belong." Robert nodded. "I know that feeling," he said. "The war. It took pieces of me, left holes. You're filling them now." One morning, Hoa brought a gift, a small wooden box carved with lotus flowers. Inside, a photo of Lan, young, holding baby Hoa, smiling. "I found it," Hoa said, "in the orphanage files, after I came back." Robert took it, his hands trembling. Lan's face, radiant, despite the war, despite the pain. "She loved you," he said, his voice cracking. "So much." Hoa nodded, tears in her eyes. "I wish I'd known her," she said. "But I know you now. That's enough." He stayed a week. The doctors cleared him. "Go home," they said, through men. "But take it easy." Robert didn't want to leave, not yet. But Texas called, his sons, his wife, the ranch. He'd built a life there, a good one. But now, it was bigger. Hoa, Lin, Bao. They were part of it. He made plans. With Hoa, she'd visit next summer, bring her family to see the plains, the stars, the life he'd promised Lan so long ago, the day he left. Hoa drove him to the airport, men beside them. The city blurred past, skyscrapers, motorbikes, life. Robert held the locket, the letter, the photo of Lan and Hoa, his anchors. "I'll be back," he said, his voice steady. Hoa smiled. "You better," she said. "Lin and Bao won't forgive you if you don't," he laughed, the sound foreign but welcome, like a song he'd forgotten. At the gate, they hugged, long, tight, like they were making up for 50 years. "You're my daughter," Robert said, his eyes wet. "Always will be." Hoa nodded, tears streaming. "And you're my dad." Men watched, smiling, his own journey mirrored in theirs. "Take care, Mr. Hayes," he said. "You found what you came for." Robert nodded. "Thanks to you." Men shook his head. "You never gave up. That's what matters." The plane took off, Ho Chi Minh City shrinking below. Robert looked out the window, the Mekong Delta sprawling, green, endless, like his hope. He thought of Lan, her sacrifice, her love. She'd kept Hoa safe, sent her to a new life, and now, that life had brought them together, across time, across pain. He saw Texas in his mind, the ranch, his sons waiting, their kids, his wife, ready to welcome Hoa, to make her part of the family, the American dream, not perfect, but whole, back in Texas. The air was dry, the plains wide. Robert stood on his porch, the same one where he'd stared at sunsets, dreaming of Lan, of Hoa. Now, he had her. Letters came, from Vietnam. Hoa's handwriting, like Lan's, photos of Lin and Bao, plans for their visit. Robert showed them to his sons. "Your sister," he said, proud. They nodded, amazed. "She's tough," one said. "Like you." Robert smiled. Like her mother. He walked the fields, his cane tapping the earth, the stars above, bright, unending. He felt Lan there, in the quiet, in the wind. "I found her," he whispered, to the night, to her. The guilt was lighter now, not gone, never gone, but shared, with Hoa, with their future. The war had taken so much, but it hadn't taken this. Family, love, redemption. He sat, the porch creaking, the flag flapping softly. He opened the locket, One last time. Lon's hair, still hers. He didn't need it now, not like before. He had Hoa, her kids, a new chapter. He closed it, set it on the table, and looked to the horizon, where the sun would rise, bringing tomorrow, bringing hope. If this journey, from battlefield scars to family reunions, moved you, subscribe to Echoes of the Past now. Don't miss our next tale of hidden histories and heartfelt discoveries. Share this story. Ring the bell for more.